didn't notice I went and I corrected it to be this way here, although I made Kane like this for my editing that I edited. And so that's catching you up on the one that I had to work on. But this is being recorded for history, for everyone to know exactly what I did for um, the editing part of this. And this is, like I said, the last one here. And I know I was talking about how uh, it, um, Isaac was to be offered, and I was telling you about how he is to be tied to a tree, because I just don't think he can be laid on this the wood, considering the wood was part of being carried by them. So it's kind of like you don't have enough to do that, but you've got enough to make the fire um, burn the body if it's tied to a tree. So I just thought I'd let you know that that's my intent of going forward in this text like this. Gathered kindling wood for the offering, and Isaac carried it. So now this kindling is the small starter wood, okay? Okay, they walked up. Yeah, here Abraham built a stone altar and and arranged the wood and built and bound his son and hung him on a tree above the wood. So that is how I believed that this actually happened. Um, because if you put the body on the wood would burn, but I don't think it's enough to cremate the body. Um, I know that it would take a lot of wood to do this before the body is actually completely burnt uh, to just where the bones are left. So this just means that this offering is supposed to be started and then our Creator was going to accept it. Now that's possible. And I think I better put this back what I had to believe. So this here is now going to get cleaned back up because I just realized that uh, the way I had it made or edited the first time was better than this. Because of the sacrifice being accepted by our Creator. See here, if I just clear it, oh, there seems to be 11 point. Is this still making sense? I don't know why I did it wrong. Gotta put it together. Correct it. Doing both sides. Okay. So thinking of bringing the text over. So let's see if I can do. And what's been the first video. This text is going to be moved at the end of the story. Right now, it's just showing you that it's being moved. Moved here. And the lamb appeared. Okay. Now, this lamb is part of the peace offering. So, this is when uh, the lamb is like supposed to be under 1 year. Okay. So old. So, but the offering is understood when it's used for Jesus is not that he's mm, um, a 1 year old or less than 1 year old. Um, I had to bring it down to only 2 words instead of 3. Uh, yeah, I think it's understood that this is here. So when I had added it, um, now I know I needed to remove it. Had to get rid of this, but still needed to add the second major word for this. Oh, no, I moved that. Yeah, that's what it means. Oh, but now was sitting eighth among the. Yeah, I needed to change that word around. I should have left the original edit in, but that's what that means. I moved that text to make it read easier for us today. That's not too difficult because the men were around there. Still don't have an answer how to say what Abraham's servant's name was. It was never given in the story, not even a hint. And I went back and looked at the original text, and it's just not there. Petitioning is the same thing as asking, only I want to make sure that this is noted that the petitioning is to be asking our Creator something, not that the word asking can be used for other people. I'm trying to pinpoint the understanding of who the petition is to by using the word petitioning. Jar to pitcher. I really am not sure whether it was a jar or a pitcher. I'm just thinking that it would be a pitcher more than it would be a jar. Because I figured they would. These jars were supposed to be set next to the wash bowl when you walked in, that you could clean your feet and stuff. Now, a jar would have been used a larger one to fill up for drinking water for a couple days. So I think it would just take a couple trips using the pitcher. This is just me putting in and trying to make sure that it's understandable that it was a pitcher and not something extremely large. Okay. I'm pretty sure that's the meaning, that it can be done with one hand. Skin, but it had to be a bucket that was let down to fill up the trough. So we're at a well. So instead of the water skin, a bucket makes more sense. I had to correct those further. The yellow was just meaning I added more inside this text from before. Talents of silver and gold, that articles, that it was easier for wealth to be traded in talents. And now a talent, I believe, was something like that, where it was so thick, but it was something that It still needed to be put on the scales that they carried, but not too large for the scale. So the talent would have to be on the size of the scale that they were using. If you're only putting small pieces of silver there to weigh out, and actually Abraham carried this scale. So so I just know that this is what I'm thinking the talents aren't that big, but they're a bigger piece than small pieces of silver or small pieces of gold. Yeah, this made more sense this way than saw they were returning. He could recognize Abraham's servant, or somebody that he knew, that he grew up around. Yeah, I read it. I thought this was his son Isaac, and I can't have him do it twice. I think I had it color coded at one time for me to remind me to change it, but when I read it, I guess I got rid of the coloring and I realized that it was Ishmael that lived by him, according to the story above. I have it instead of a farmer because he went on to be a herder of for his brother-in-law. So uh, for his mother's brothers, where he's going to receive his wife, he does that. So it didn't make sense for me having it as a farmer. It made more truthful sense that when we read it later, it was herder. Uh, He would go into the field to hunt. The problem within a field is deers or animals, pretty much, um, will stay hidden in the forest. And they'll come out and they'll watch for a long time before they go into the field. So if he's standing out in the field, that's not going to help. It's easier to sneak up on animals in the forest because there's trails that they follow, and you can be near a trail to be able to hunt and get the animals or hunt for animals. A lot of people don't understand that. Um, I grew up where there was a deer run right next to our cabin, and I've seen a moose run as well. Um, and they literally use the same path for hundreds of years. I just needed some cleaning up. And like I said, the word wrath, I'm going to use it instead of a curse. Didn't use the word punishment, by the way. Just trying to keep that separate as well. So still not sure. What get that energy port. I've got a dock sitting off to the side so I can see it when the text pops up, but I still left it in its beginning position. Didn't activate it, I think. Uh, parents. Sure who this was speaking to, so I had to get rid of this and made sure Abraham's name was here. Again, ask anew, ask anew, because it couldn't be just a high of daylight. Um, if you go by uh, fields where there's a lot of herds of animals, you'll notice that what they do is they drink and then they go lay down for the rest. And then it's the heat of the day that they're resting. There should be more shade for them. And I'm just mad at all the farmers in the world have 500 acres cleared out and there's not a tree for them to stand under for shade. But the animals do need shade. So to understand that it was past noontime, and this was made sure that um, the water has to be drunk, and then by 1 o'clock, meaning it's just a little past noon, they should be drinking. Okay. And then rest in the field. See, there it is. That's what, 2,800 years old, maybe older. I think I leave it blank as a name, but there's no name here. Change the words to be this. Just try to put numbers in so they're easier to search for. And just like the word number one, I'm trying to make sure that that's tied to when it's speaking like one of them would be spelled out. But if it's like one tribe, using the number one. These over here are notes for myself. I could shift these over later. All to be in a row. It's just read better. See to know, said to them, I know. Uh, and be in their voice and not so much in their appearance. Uh, what's going on here? Didn't sat them on there. He placed them on there. I thought the word sat would be better because they were younger. So some were young. Okay, I moved this verse down to here. Well, it just reads better this way. These dates that I'm changing, and I've changed quite a few of them, it made more sense once I compiled the stories together. I do try to make sure that everything is truthful as possible. And anybody well, I guess I'm going to teach after this, some of it, not all of it. I think our Creator wants everyone to learn from the text, and each one is going to have certain experiences coming closer to our Creator and our Creator is going to teach them the in-depth text inside each of these verses. Um, I know my mother once asked me about a verse, and it took me 20 minutes to explain it because every word is very important of how it was back then. The, like, there's not much there. It's these small little entities. I don't think explain. Now, it's a colored coat. Um, Now that to me means that they were dyeing it, or it would have had to been made out of many different hides. But what they were to wear was ram hides, which are white. Okay, so when you come across coming through their land, everybody would have been that is obeying our Creator would have wore the same clothes right up to Jesus's time in white. Okay, so the thing here is that's part of their heritage. It was simple, and then they ended up starting to wear clothing. Probably about 200 years, 300 years, maybe a little bit more than 400 years before Jesus appeared. So, but I decided that a deer hide would have been the difference. And his father was making it, and he's kind of breaking their custom, and they were all jealous of the custom his father was breaking. Not that the color means anything. Oops. Down here, the word beast to a lion. Slain by lions, killing him. Okay, that's why I put the word lion up there because it was down here in the text. Before it was just a beast, but I had to make sure that the bit was made for a specific animal. So it means it would have been rather wide and deep. Be just in the middle field, like I said. Even the lions would have had run paths that they would use all the time foraging for food. Because if they're walking on grass or that, it's too loud. They were trying to be animals try to be as quiet as they can. Um, I think this was a blank verse, and I decided to put this text in. I think that's the intent I needed to keep the flow of the story. I didn't send it to him, and they had to go and showed him. Let's keep it up with the text to make sure the story stays consistent. Good servant. I guess I decided to change this back to sellers. Okay. Oh, getting more money. The chief is good servant. This is about Joseph finding favor with the guy he was sold to. And so it has to be like the head servant. So I use the word chief to meaning it's above the head servant, because you could have a head servant for the field workers. You could have a head over in the household work. Well, this makes him the chief over everything. Thing he owns, and just not the house. Yes, everything. And yeah, that's kind of what I was getting at when I'm reading that text. I realized that the house wasn't filling the requirements of my word chief here. So as you can see, the blue text is what I'm going to use as um, labeling the story, what you're going to read, and I'm putting them together as great big large ones. Um, See, this is just going to be a small step. This blue here. Later, it will be all the way over to the side, but the object here is that I've got to come up with a system that there's not, because I've done this before and I've run out of how many um, chapters you can name in Microsoft Word. I really truly need probably about 350. It just doesn't do that. But what I wanted to do is say, if you're reading the page to begin with, or the list of stories, that you'll see a group, a bunch of words. And what I try to do is made them by subjects. So some are going to be like that large, and some are going to be like that thin. So, but I'm still going to try to group them that when you start reading, say, okay, I know what's going to happen here. I'm not, once you understand the stories, there's going to be a point to where people are going to get, you're going to get better at when you start reading and say, I understand that. I'm not looking for that. I'm going to leave a large amount of paper off to the side when I do publish the text in print, and that way everybody can make their notes. Um, yeah, they ate them by swallowing. I wanted to make sure that the visual of his vision of what was happening. So I just couldn't have the bulls ate them. The thin bulls ate the thin bulls ate the fat bulls. So, but by swallowing, it just. I'm also trying to make the text so I can end up when it's made into a movie, that everything here is more descriptive for what needs to be put into the movie. It wasn't a famine; they didn't die out, but there was a drought in this here, that it can't be called a famine. A famine is where everybody is starting to die, where they could have just went to other places. Well, they usually don't go to other places like leaving Egypt. They wanted to wait because the Nile River is fertile, so that's why it's a very populated country today. It can support life, or living life, or humans, I guess. So this famine couldn't be a famine, but drought means there's going to be less and less coming off the field. So this word being changed was for that reason, that they still could produce, but they couldn't produce a bunch. The ones closer to the river, they could get water most likely pumped or made to come out to do the closer ones around there. But the farther you go into Egypt or away from the rivers, it was no water. Things needed to be switched around for the correct order. From kingdoms, peoples to kingdoms. Uh, I think it would be better described as kingdoms around them. Um, Somebody was ruling over them, so I'm calling them a kingdom. You got to remember when Israel they went into the promised land, they'll talk about different kingdoms, but you'll find that some are only less than 10 miles by 10 miles. But um, it was lush enough to have the population of thousands living there. Maybe tens of thousands is a better way to say it. So I just got out. I know that the text below kind of refers to this, but this is really out of place. It's later. Um, yeah, it's right here. I think, yeah, gonna take one of you. This, um, no, this has got to happen later. Yeah, this is what's talking about that's going to happen later. It doesn't need to be said at this time. It could have been a reader's note at that time. They changed their sack to feed sack because they had to feed the animals. That they were, look, animals can sense the grains. The grains were for them. This feed stack would have been the grass for them. So this would have been something that they probably would have had just for each of them, they would have had one donkey that had this feedstock, feedstock sack, and that's what they put them in. It just makes sense because otherwise, if they would have opened up any of the other grain, that doesn't make sense to me. It has to be this. Why did I change it from feed to grain and then grain to feed? I don't understand why I did this. I got to check into this again. Like I said, I'll review this later. Last time, okay, it's got in the breakdown. Okay. This does not make any sense why I changed it to the grain. I think it's all going to get changed back to grain. This is disappointing that I did such a poor editing here. Stopped and changed and come back and got what I'd done. Because like I said, when the hurricane come up, I couldn't get to it for a couple months. Got wiped out in the hurricane. So yeah, says, yeah, I wanted to change food to grain. Yeah. Make sure that they knew what the reader understood what they went to actually buy, just not that it was food. This change was because of, like I said, once you figure out the order and how I figured out the order of the sons' births, Benjamin was not the youngest. Naphtali was, or then Naphtali, then Joseph. Uh, it's because the way the map for the tribes, and I'll go over that again in because I need to explain that as well as how they knew how to go to which priest to make their offering around this tent. And then they actually followed that pattern to pass out the promised land. Yeah, I think the guard was a better description. The steward, I don't think would be by him. I'm thinking a guard would have been around him because he was a position of authority. Yeah, changed to draw again. I think I shortened up the time when they returned, how much grain. Because you got to understand how much a donkey can carry of grains. And if you've got a trail of, like a train of donkeys, that's a lot of food to eat. Um, like I said, it wasn't completely wiped out. It's this s- stuff that you need through the winter time that they were going for. So I kind of arranged the years a little bit different this time, reverse them. I wanted visually not that he saw them like past tense, he looked at the wagons. So a lot of this kind of editing like this. Um, he didn't fall onto his neck; it was his shoulder type of thing. So summoned. He was a person of authority, so he summoned people that called. Oh, this was his father, who was yes, who summoned Joseph to him. So I'm keeping the word summoned with a person of the most importance that has the power to make the other person obey. I guess that's the understanding about I'm trying to make sure that that word's there. I got rid of the word appointment. He enslaved them, and using the word so as the second major word. I got away with using small words, I know, like then, that king. So they're common words sometimes, but sometimes I just figured that they are needed. You can't get away without using them. This made more sense than every. Well, this looks like I forgot an apostrophe S. All people's new what son. See, time. Boy, I've got like 300 pages to go through, but I do need to do this for making sure people, when they actually, I'm trying to make sure the thought process is being put out of understanding why I would change the word hide to buried him in the sand. He was hiding him. That's in this word, so that's why I'm using the word buried him. Uh, See, here it is relative by law. It was not father by law, but a relative by law. Yeah, it was the sign. It was a cobra, and we know the story of the cobra. So yeah, to celebrate him by the sea, meet him by the sea. Um, because he was leading as a cloud before them, they were all in a line. But the word meet is to say that they're gonna gather together to set up this. We're gonna stay here for a day. This is the word meet that I've got here. Understand what the text is saying or imply in the text. That's what they were going to do. Because it does tell them that the Pharaoh's going to come after him. So the thing there is it it has to be this meeting. Well, maybe the word meet, just meet with him and camp around the location that he's designated. That they're all gonna be there because they're still all scattered over the area. Now, well, it's not all over the Egypt because they gathered them together. We just don't know how big of this area. Did they keep them all within like 40 miles of a riverbank so they could make the clay? That type of thing. So, and 40 miles is like a day's walk, 2 days, a good day's walk. Getting rid of one title, put in another title. I wanted to make sure that this was not confused with a bird. So, okay, stop here.